Alright, greetings everybody, and it is time for a unit review and look at better than I've been doing recently because I'm just kind of interested and life has kind of quieted down a little bit enough for me to have a little more time to put a little bit more into my videos. So today we're taking a look at the new Glassy, which I've seen some people already trying to suggest different names. I want to call her Floatsy because of reasons. And before we get too far into this video, I do want to say one thing. A lot of people have been commenting that, hey, this is the fourth Glassy. This is the fourth Glassy. This is why is there 4 versions of Glassy? I want to go on record as saying that this is not Gumi's fault. There is a lot of things that we can look and point fingers and complain about stuff that Gumi does in this game, and that is totally fair. But for the sake of the whole fourth thing, the 2 versions that we've gotten of Glassy are because of fan voting, and one is story and one is an upgrade from later on in the story. I don't think it's really it's too terribly fair to berate this too terribly much, and quite frankly, you guys, we get it. We all get it. It is the 4th Glassy. It's not that big of a revelation anymore. I'm just trying to bring some decorum before I get into this. I get it. This is a character that has gotten quite a few versions at this point, but mostly it's what the JP players want, and the majority rules, so I'm gonna end this. Let's suck it. Anyway, let's talk about this new character, and we're going to be talking about some stuff that has come along with this character as well, and the whole package today, because I think that this is an actually absolutely, and sorry I hit the microphone, incredible character for the water element, and potentially in combination with earth and ice. Outside of that, I don't think that this character has too terribly much. This is a anti-physical tank with some new tricks up her sleeve to make her quite interesting to go up against her opponents. And from early impressions of what I've seen in some matchups, she's looking to be quite strong. So thankfully, I was able to get her quite easily. I didn't have to spend too terribly much resources, although this is a limited time unit. So finishing her before the end will be rather important. So I haven't picked out a specific map today, so I'm just going to go with this one. I'm going to be doing light versus water because I've already seen earth versus her and Bridal Alaya versus her. So I'm going to be trying something that I haven't seen too terribly much yet. And kind of from what I've seen, this team is pretty offensive, so I want to see what that ends up looking like. But here is a general version of what she looks like off of the friend unit build. Now this is with Ferris, these VCs, and Astrius with these VCs. Something to note if we're going to take a look at Ferris for comparison. She is not actually maxed out with Sildra. I am running just particularly low on Espers with this specific comp in terms of maximization. So apologies for that sake, just for recording this video. Now, Ahriman does seem to be a generally good fit. Of course, any tank Esper will be good on this character. We also have the new VC. And this is where I'm going to start talking tonight about this VC, because this VC is, I'm on the fence about this, and maybe some other people can throw in some whether or not you think this is good. On JP, this is a limited card, which is unfortunate, because probably when it comes to global/worldwide, it will be non-limited, if I remember how your beach units work. But taking a look at this VC, 374 HP, 128 attack, and 5 defense is already pretty decent. In terms of some things that this fixes for our new version of Glassy, debuff effect weakening by 25%. So basically, if the enemy can pierce like 20 of defense penetration, it goes down to 15. So basically, debuffs don't work as well. Acquired AP up, meaning higher AP generation, and AoE resistance of 24. Also, there is a maximum HP increase of 9% for the specific unit that has this equipped, and a ability. Now, the ability is pretty interesting because it is a new kind of reaction. If your opponent attacks with strike attack, the damage is reduced, and from what I've seen, it looks to be somewhere between a 60 to 40% damage reduction, which you might think that's not too terribly impressive, but something to remember here is that with lightning resistance in combination with the strike resistance, it actually makes a water team and even a water ice team semi-viable versus Bridal Elia. Bridal Elia is still capable of dishing out a lot of damage versus water units, as you would expect, as well as many other units. Again, I would like to highlight that Bridal Elia was one of the top used JP units for the entire month of July, which kind of tells you how strong she really is. And when I say top use units, I mean in top guilds too, not the lower tier ones, but the highest tier ones. So that's kind of important to note. So this BC, I think, is pretty good as a job BC. It's perfect for water. It works with strike units, katana units, book units, and last but not least, the Red Mage Swords group, which is just a wide variety of synergy here between multiple characters across multiple elements to work quite nicely to be quite strong in the future. So a very defensive card. Next up, we have to talk about her sword. Now, her sword is for not just for her. It's actually equipable by multiple different jobs, but certain jobs, including Charlotte and UR Mont, do get a bonus for this, which is increased defense penetration of 20 and all elemental resistance up by 10% when HP is over 60%, as well as just a general slash attack. So the sword is really good for tanks, I would say, because you are getting a fair amount of defensive as well as offensive stuff, which I think works quite well with some of the tanks we've mentioned, including our new Glaciela. And the last thing to generally talk about, which isn't on screen yet, but I will pull it up on Wotv Calc here and just bring it up on camera. 1 second. Is this the new Mog Beach Ball? Now this is from the mini raid on JP. It's very easy to get and very easy to max. 274 HP, 20 AP, 80 attack, 80 magic, and 13 critical rate. Now, as a general bonus for equipping this, all elemental attack is increased by 10%, but for the specific condition of any of the beach units, increase critical damage by 15 and increase reaction block rate by 30. A quite nice rounding upgrade to the old beach units as well as the new beach units too. So I'm quite happy with how nice this ended up looking. All right, so next I think we can just talk about general impressions of stats. So taking a look, I mean, almost 1300 HP without HP runes. You can easily get this character into a really high amount of HP, which is great because she's essentially a tank. Her speed at 91 here is very good, and this is without the actual thief increase for speed. So you take a look at Paris, who isn't super upgraded, but you take a look also at Astrius, and she keeps up relatively well. If you wanted to, you could push her speed probably with speed runes, just making her match with the team quite nicely, which is important as we're going to get into. 1230 attack is pretty good here. 68 defense is incredible for being an anti-physical, and gets even better. And single target and AoE resistance is 50 apiece. But it also goes a little bit further into saying that this build with these VCs is quite nice as well, because we're essentially looking at 70% slash resistance, 20% strike, 15 shooting, 10 magic, and 5% for piercing, as well as positive positive elemental resistance across the board, which is rather important for just a strong elemental tank. So that basically wraps up into that. Really quickly, I will say that the TMR skill Does give also fire resistance and water resistance for 20% a piece, which is okay. I mean, really, it's into matchup she was generally already good in, but sure, why not? And single target resistance of 25, which is actually more interesting and more valuable, and the thing I really like from this TMR. So I think that the TMR is generally pretty strong. Also, the stats, pretty defensive, but that's what we want for a unit like this. Master ability is 10% HP increase, single target resistance of 10, and her Dream Enhancement ability, healing power plus 15, and chance of being targeted increased by 5. That is static and undispellable, but it is also not in a way of accruing it, but, you know, every time a new battle starts, she has it accessible to her. I want to draw special attention to her counter ability because the title is so good. SPF 50. A chance to counter slash and magical damage of a maximum of 70% chance of doing that when fully maxed, which is really good, while also reducing the damage taken by 40% for those damage types. Now, it is a specific anti-damage type, but if you consider magic is a weak spot for her, being able to constantly stop or weaken the magic damage is really quite nice here. And the other thing that I think is quite interesting is, I mean, she's just so strong against the biggest damage type in the entire game. And with the vision card, you can also get a good amount of debuff resistance going, which essentially makes you pretty bulletproof versus what Slash likes to do. Or let me put it this way, strong enough that I don't think you'll be too worried. Now, as for support skills, she did get jump +1 and HP and healing power from Dragoon. From Thief, she got acquired AP as well as move and agility. And her two new ones include, wait a minute, which one am I looking at? I'm looking at the wrong thing. I want to look at this first. So AoE or debuff effect weakening of 30%. As well as increased chance of being targeted and AoE resistance. Chance of being targeted of 5, AoE resistance of 15, debuff weakening of 30. So in combination with her vision card that has come out this week, that's essentially a 55% reduction in whatever the reduction your opponent was trying to get. As for the other one, it is just a simple HP and defense up, probably fairly replaceable, but pretty nice, seeing that this is what we want this unit to do. And now, moving into basically just talking about Dragoon, there isn't anything to really talk about here. The one thing that I like is her 42% attack increase from having Protect activated, which is which is quite doable, but giving her an access to another effect of Protect is quite nice. As for Thief, she actually ended up getting Charm and decreased CT. Both of those might be important for different things in the future, but we're just going to remember that. All right, next up, I want to talk about her Limit Burst before we get into the main part of her kit. Limit Burst is a increase attack by 40% for self, AoE resistance increase of 40 per self, and damage of a 200% mod at a 43 AP cost. It's a pretty nice ability that makes her very, very tanky. Short range, but looking at her kit, I don't think she'll have too terribly much problems surviving through that. So for the last little bit, I am going to bring up Wotv Calc just so we can see. Sub part of her job is a decrease of an agility attack with fairly inflexible range, but a fairly high amount of damage, and a restore HP of 30%. In combination with the extra healing power she can get from different places, kind of makes her general healing quite strong in the sense of Engelbert's 140, which is definitely strong and definitely scary. So keep an eye on this ability. It actually makes a good case for just using her sub job so she has access to a strong heal. Now, basic ability, increase elemental chain resistance of 80 for 3 turns and grants Protect. Both of these things are absolutely essential to just being a good defensive unit, so great. Short range attack does have the ability of decreasing CT by 20, which is fairly good. Next ability, 200% chance to ignore fatal damage with a couple of extra skills attached. and does get upgraded into her EX to also, when conditions are met, autocast a heal when HP is below 50%. Again, with the increased healing that she is capable of doing, this basically means that she has a feature of Snow, who was also a just insanely good tank. But the really big thing about this is that, I mean, here you can essentially look that it is a 40% heal that she is getting off of this ability, which is quite good. But she's also increasing accuracy for allies in range around this ability. This basic diamond pattern that you can see right here, if any of her friendly units are within this range, they get an increase of accuracy by 40, which is something that Water has long desired, but also other types of units too. And last but not least, a reduction in damage, which is quite an interesting ability in the general sense of what Bart's can do, but a defensive option, which I think is very, very cool. Next up, she can break physical barriers for targets while also reducing damage taken a single time in terms of physical damage. Not super great game breaking or anything, but the fact that you can break an opponent's, like, just essentially steal a barrier is kind of cool, and it's a 70% damage reduction, which goes a long way to keeping her alive. She also has a select 2 target ability, which increases her own offensive capabilities, dispels auto revive, decreases defense penetration on the target, which again helps keep her alive, and increases her defense by 40 for a single turn, which, if you're keeping track, if you use this ability, that would push the friend Glacie's defense well over 100, with a good amount of protection against defense penetration and debuff weakening, making that Glacie is kind of just a brick wall. And last but not least, 100% hit chance accuracy ability that is AoE, and guess what? It also has a chance to inflict stop. So all in all, across everything, I think that Glacie's kit is very well built. Any defensive tank unit would be happy to see these kind of skills, and I think that the power level here is very clearly quite high. Not necessarily unbeatable, but in combination with the more defensive Paris, who is still fairly offensive, I think that we've ended up with Water being this really neat, more realized brawler style, which looks to be quite strong overall. So we're going to bring in our light units. We're going to start doing, of course, our nice little testing here, because testing is what we are interested in. We do want to see. If you also consider that Astrius just has such great... shoot. I'm getting mixed up. But if you consider that Astrius also has like the HP boosting and everything, it's kind of another interesting source of synergy that you can see across multiple units. And of course, with Ferris being capable of just also being very highly defensive and having her secondary abilities that can heal a group as well, if you consider like putting that all in a small area with a ton of AoE resistance, seems just really, 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 really powerful. So just generating some AP here while also getting a few things ready. Now here we can take a look at Glacie. Now we haven't cast too many abilities here, so we can get an idea. 30% stop with the current friend build. I'm curious if that can be pushed maybe a little bit higher, but not super big priority for this unit. Next up, this one with the agility lowering. We can see that she is dealing a good amount of damage there. Next up, single target. Her accuracy is a little bit low, but that's just the way this build is. And her select one, which is something that we definitely do want to try. So first off, I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do this primarily so that we can see the damage, but also just so that I can get the actual defense up on this unit. And right here, you can see that defense is up to 108. So going back to Bartz, who we know is a very good offensive character, you can see the difference here, even between these two characters. This is a single target attack, and you can see just the vast array of damage removal that she is capable of, where it's hitting 6,000 HP on Ferris, who is still a very good defensive unit, but more AoE focused. You take a look at this unit who's absorbing a lot with Hatred, and she's really not taking that much damage. Even if we were to, for instance, I need to find an AoE ability here, you can see that she's still quite strong into the AoE, and this is without having casted elemental resistance, protect, or anything else. So let's just go back. We're going to continue to cast just a bunch of buffs for right now. Get all these nice barriers up. Take a quick peek here. Just seeing the type of damage that we can do. Obviously, Astria is still very powerful in that sense. We're also going to run is right here. We'll run a few more abilities. All right, and now that we've come back around, we can start doing this. So we can start getting our HP heal online, generating some AP. And now we also have our skill active, and the skill is supposed to be accessible through a height difference of 1 and a range of 4, which I think is quite high. Alright, so now we're going to bring back our guy over here and take a look at what a difference a turn makes. With the ability now active on Glacy, this aura style effect, you can see that she is effectively just reducing the amount of damage that her allies are taking. And again, if it really is potentially, you know, even just a little bit too dangerous, well, good news. She has potentially a source of healing from her allies here. But here, taking a look, we can see roughly the damage that she's taking, the damage that Ferris is taking now, and the damage that Astrius is taking. But overall, it feels like a very strong unit to have right in here. So let's go right back in here for a second. We'll launch a nice little attack over there. Send Bartz flying. Why not? Just let Astrius chill for a minute. We'll let Ferris just show off her ability. If I can remember which one it is. I do want to say, is this the healing one? Yes. So we'll fire off this ability on our opponents just to see the kind of heals that we get. Pretty nice overall. And our last skill that we kind of just want to get is we want to get our protect style effect, which is should be just this one. Oh, there's basically what her heal is, essentially being able to heal. So not necessarily half, but a pretty good amount. Here is our elemental chain resistance. We'll put that up. And now I think we're just going to be a little bit mean to her. Start firing off a few attacks. The mighty 272 points of damage. Throw an Astrius attack against her. See what kind of damage that's doing. Why not? If Bartz here can throw an attack against her. Yep. Over the range. That protect, keeping her nice and healthy. And again, we can be throwing a lot of attacks against her and not too terribly worried, because she is going to get that heal in once she goes below 50%. So we're just hitting here. We're hitting with basically everything we kind of have. Want to maybe push just a wee bit more damage. See if she can get below that 50% somehow. He's actually too strong. Yeah, we're even gonna. I think we are just going to keep hitting her with all kinds of stuff. You can see that damage reduction there working quite nicely to end up keeping her safe and everything like that. Could just do the heal, but that seems a little bit mean. Now we're gonna run this. There's her TMR buff skill. Making her even more damage resistant than she already was. And she ends up getting a 7,000 HP heal. So, I mean, obviously, like, there are some teams out there that are going to, I think, just generally find weaknesses, and maybe, you know, it's just more fear types, more magic types. Maybe that's the general way to get around her. But Glaciela feels like a top tier unit, both in terms of just how well her overall kit is designed, the fact that you can go a little more offensive and really lose nothing for defensive. And she has such a large range for her aura. And even though, like, not necessarily her speed is quite as fast as some of the other units, it does match up fairly nicely against a bunch of other stuff. And I've seen her compromise, or in teams with units such as Velis, and not only Velis, but also Ice Howlet, being a neat combination of just a very defensive unit up front, allowing the mages to attack in the back. I think that this unit has a ton of flexibility with the in combination with the earth element, the ice element, and the water element. And I think you're going to be seeing a lot of this unit into the future because she is just looking so top tier. So yeah, that is all for this video. Definitely a long-term payoff, I think, especially with those who have invested into Ferris. Quite the unit. Lassie rarely disappoints when she comes out, and usually is quite a long-lasting unit. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Take care, and gonna cut this video before we hit the 30-minute mark, but had just so much to say. See ya.